Delighted to welcome to the podcast Virgin Media, ESPN and Eurosport football journalist Mark Rodden. Mark, welcome to the podcast. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. Looking forward to all this football. It's been so long since we last watched football matches, and now we have about, 20 and 25 days. I can't even remember how many top European games to come. It's going to be good.
Yeah, we've actually almost too many. Talk us a little bit about the festival of football, and you're obviously looking forward to it being back with the Europa League first and then the Champions League.
Yeah, it is what it is. It's not ideal. Obviously, it's truncated with a lot of one-leg ties, and obviously all the ties are played behind closed doors. Starting with the Europa League, I suppose everyone talks about Man United getting into the Champions League, but they had this second chance with the Europa League, and in terms of getting back to where they were, being a top European club, they should be looking to win this. I'd say all the players are pretty excited now to basically have a free hit at it as well, without that pressure of, if they had missed out in the top four, having to win it to get into Champions League again, I guess. And they have a good chance the way the draw has fallen for them. Obviously, they're miles ahead of Lask in the first leg, but in case that was a tight tie, Lask would not pose much opposition anyway, because they, I don't know if you saw this story, it was one of my favourite stories of the lockdown. They went back to training too early. They were going for the league title. They were ahead of Salzburg, having this amazing season. And so they got docked 12 points, which was halved for the playoffs, but then meant they were second. And then they just collapsed. Every other team in the league obviously hated them after they basically cheated, and they ended up finishing fourth, just about scraping fourth, I think, in the end. So real disaster. They're a real mess. Their coach has left. What should have been the best season in their history probably has turned into a right mess. So I don't think they're going to be in great form to play Manchester United. And then, yeah, I think it's Istanbul probably in the next round for United. Istanbul Başakşehir, who won the Turkish league, but what are you talking? 35-year-old Gael Clichy, 35-year-old Martin Skrtel, 35-year-old Demba Ba. I think Robinho's 36, doesn't play all that much either. They also won the league title because Trabzonspor basically fell apart, cracked completely, lost and drew a load of games they should have won. So then you're into the semi-final. And really, you're looking at Manchester United. What's going to stop them? Maybe Wolves, maybe Inter, Sevilla, but it's there to be won, I think. And if you want to come in, you can ask about the Champions League or whatever, or I can just keep talking if you prefer.
No, I was just on the, I suppose, for United, because sometimes, if they'd already qualified for Champions League in a normal season, they might, say, look, we need to focus on top four. But I suppose two factors there. Firstly, the top four is obviously decided and they're guaranteed Champions League football. And second of all, obviously once they're through to the quarterfinals, they've just got 3 one-off games. So for them, it's not a case of that they're playing, two-legged ties, miles away. It's just 3 games and they have a European trophy. So I suppose for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, do you reckon it's a big enough trophy for him to get his hands on his first trophy as a manager?
Yeah, look, I think if you look through any sport, really, it's all about getting over the line and developing that winning culture. Even with Liverpool, they had to lose a couple of finals before they won one, and once they did, they suddenly took on a whole new dimension. Whether that's going to happen with Ole, just getting a top 4 place, maybe, but I do think if you win, even if it is Europa League, if you win a European trophy, it makes you much more attractive. It shows that you're consistent and you can cope with the pressure in big games. They've already done that in the Premier League. They're highly likely to get Jadon Sancho as well, who's going to be an incredible addition. But if they go and win the Europa League as well, it's just another sign that, yeah, look, United are back. Ollie he's at the wheel. He knows what he's doing, So they suddenly become a really attractive club to go to again.
And last thing on United, what are your thoughts on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer overall? Because there's definitely a mixed view where A lot of people are happy to give him time and prove himself. And the post-lockdown football has been amazing. But, a lot of other football journalists and other football people in the media are saying, look, he doesn't have the experience track record that Pochettino did at the time. Now that's died down a little bit since lockdown, but I suppose the last couple of games they did kind of eke over the line, having looked like they were going to cruise through. So what are your thoughts on Ole Gunnar Solskjaer? And do you think ultimately he can be successful at United in terms of competing for league titles and then Champions League football, or
There's a
Champions League
couple.
titles? Sorry.
There's a couple of things there, I guess. You know, the points total was pretty much similar to last year, so it's just the way the league has gone that they've ended up in the top four this time. But if you look at their record, they have been exceptional really since the turn of the year. A lot of that's to do with Bruno Fernandes. Saw a lot of him in Portugal. Really confused as to why no one signed him before, because he was brilliant for a couple of seasons. But United have spent a lot of money. So on the one hand, you're saying, Ollie should be delivering. On the other, you have to give him credit because it's a bloody hard job. You've seen it with David Moyes and Van Gaal as well, and Mourinho. Even it's one of the biggest clubs in the world. It's a really hard job. I think it's helped him that he knows the club. He knows what it's all about. But there was definitely a moment there where he was gone. I think if he didn't turn it around, and I think this season, if you're a Manchester City fan, you're going to think, why did we not bury Manchester United when we had the chance? We had the chance to really maybe set them back a few years, and City ended up losing to them twice in the league. And that's essentially why they made the top six, or top four, sorry.
And then also on the Europa League, what about Wolves? Obviously, Ireland's Matt Doherty, a lot of people have an interest in that. They've in the rare situation where, because of their league position, they won't have Europa League football, but they have the possibility, if they win the Europa League, of getting Champions League football. And at times in the Europa League, they've been one of the standout teams.
I've had this great pleasure of being able to travel for work to pre-season friendlies the last few summers. Which is obviously something that may not happen in post-coronavirus world. But I saw Wolves, I think it was 2 or 3 seasons ago, I got sent over to cover one of their friendlies, and it was the first year. And Matt Doherty was absolutely flying. Wolves were absolutely flying. Clear way of playing. They haven't changed. They were in the championship at that time. They beat Leicester, and I kind of said, bloody hell. And the same thing happened actually with Sheffield United. I saw Chris Wilder's team, I think 3 years ago, and then last season as well. And I just said, these two teams, bloody hell, like they're going to be Premier League teams in no time. And the way they play is completely different to your usual promoted team. Wolves are just really unlucky not to finish top 6, maybe even not to finish top 4. They have been brilliant. They've been really consistent. I think for the Europa League, they have a lot of really experienced players, the likes of João Moutinho and guys like this, that'll make a difference in that competition. And Olympiacos, tricky team. They were in the Champions League. They have a good manager. Obviously saw them against Arsenal, but it helps probably that Wolves have one of their best players from the first half of the season, which is Daniel Podence. Can't see Wolves not getting past them. I think it'll be tight, but it would be disappointing for Wolves if they didn't make it. And obviously they have that added motivation of having to go and win it to get European football next season. And they're obviously, there's Matt Doherty, but they're probably one of everyone's second favourite teams, I guess, and we'd all like to see them at least get to the semi-finals and maybe take on United or someone like that to deserve it at the very least, so hopefully they can make it that far to start with.
Yeah, and again, I suppose it's the excitement of those one-off games that the Wolves definitely have the potential, and that just for people to know, they're 1-1 and they're at home to Olympiacos going into the second leg. And yeah, if they get through that, as you said, there could be potential semi-finals against United or even final. Moving on to talk a little bit about Manchester City and Pep Guardiola. I suppose Pep this year with City, there's definitely a school of thought that they finished so far behind Liverpool. You could argue it's almost unacceptable with the amount of money he spent. And then there's another school of thought that is just a bit of forgiveness, and it's Pep Guardiola. I suppose, how big is this Champions League for him in terms of he still hasn't won it yet at City, and he never quite did it at Bayern as well. In terms of Champions League trophies, and how important is it for a manager like Pep Guardiola that his legacy will be remembered in terms of Champions League trophies, whether that's right or wrong? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm not sure if Pep Guardiola is staying up all night worrying about the fact that people say he's never won it without Messi, but that's a fact, and you look at the record, both with Bayern and City, they've been disappointing campaigns. That's 6 campaigns now, I think,
Not
if I
even a
remember
final.
right. Yeah, not even a final. Real Madrid did them first year with Bayern. Barcelona, Atletico after that, which is kind of red flags there, considering they're playing Real Madrid again. And then with City, Monaco, Liverpool, fair enough, but Spurs last year. And a lot of those, if you look back, a lot of those results came after fairly decent first leg results. So you would think, having won 2-1 away against Real Madrid, they'll get through. But I don't know if that, a little like PSG, I don't know if that kind of thing, and again, what I mentioned earlier, just about teams having a tradition of, winning or getting to a certain point of a competition, they don't have that. And does that play on their mind? And does that translate? You look at Pep, he's always so full of nervous energy on the sideline. Does that kind of transmit to the players on a big night in a Champions League match? And you look at their record, I think it's 11 defeats in all competitions this season. They've lost against Chelsea, United, Spurs, Liverpool, Arsenal. They've lost all the big games. And Zidane hasn't been knocked out in the Champions League as a manager yet. Won it 3 times. Real Madrid has read an interview their assistant, David Bettoni, did after the league win, and he kind of said, we really worked on not so much physical during the lockdown, but mental stuff. And Real Madrid had 10 wins in a row to win La Liga, a lot of them narrow wins. I'd be worried if I was a City fan.
You'd also be worried about current performances. Look, if you look at the FA Cup semi-final, it's the one time I've really seen a Pep Guardiola team just bereft of ideas. Like, obviously, De Bruyne is their main man. They tried to get the ball into De Bruyne, but if you can stop De Bruyne, you really at the moment are hurting this Manchester City side. And it'd be interesting to see what Zidane does, who he has to keep an eye on De Bruyne. But at the moment, Manchester City are kind of struggling to get the ball in the back of the net, and obviously they are frail at the back defensively. It'd be very interesting to see how Real Madrid get at Manchester City.
Yeah, no Aguero for City, I think is huge. Jesus hasn't probably played in a game as big as this in the Champions League, or being the main man. Yeah, exactly. What I would say in City's favour, you talk about De Bruyne for City. You got to talk about Ramos for Real Madrid, and he got that red card in the first leg, so he's suspended, and he missed the Ajax game as well. And we all saw what happened there when Real Madrid went out and crashed and burned against Ajax 4-1 at the Bernabeu. I don't know, the 5 subs as well. I don't know if that's going to make a difference. But have City done it in big games this season when it really mattered? There was a lot of fanfare after they beat. I didn't like the way they over celebrated having beaten Liverpool. It reminded me of Rangers beating Celtic in Scotland when the league was done, sort of thing. It's like, yeah, lads, it doesn't really matter. That sounds a bit stupid talking about a team like City that's done it all, but I don't know. The pressure's all. I think the pressure's all on them against Real Madrid, and Real Madrid get the first goal. City haven't, 2 clean sheets or something in 11 games and knockouts. They're not that they're probably gonna concede a goal. Are they gonna score enough to go through? I don't know.
Also on the opening night, Juventus play Lyon, and they're 1-0 down from the first leg. And I think the most interesting thing about Juventus is for someone like Cristiano Ronaldo, if Juve fail to get through this, is he going to stick about at Juve again? Obviously, they won the Scudetto again. But for someone like Ronaldo, who prides himself on being the best player and in the best moments, and if Juve fail to beat Lyon, could we potentially see Ronaldo look for pastures new?
Yeah, potentially. I think Juventus I think Ronaldo needs a bit of help there. To be honest, I don't think Juventus have a team to win the Champions League this year. And he's obviously getting on a bit. The one thing I would say is Lyon are coming into it after playing their last competitive match in March, with the exception of last Friday, wasn't it? They played the League Cup final against PSG. I watched that game. It was a really poor game. It looked like two teams that were just starting out, whether it was two teams that were playing a cup final, it didn't really matter. And we're thinking about a bigger game to come. I don't know, but Lyon they've lost a goal scorer from the first leg, Luka Tusa, who's moved to Hertha Berlin. He didn't hang around. He's quite an influential player for them, holding midfielder. 1-0 is a home win is a good result normally, I think, with the away goal rule, but Lyon didn't look, just despite pushing PSG all the way, they didn't look great. I haven't seen as much of Juventus, but I can't see Lyon managing to beat Juventus in that one. But then again, I can't see Juventus going all the way either.
Yeah, and I suppose with Juventus, they only finished 5 points ahead of Atalanta, who lost to Inter on the final game to end up finishing third. How impressed have you been with their rise? And I almost feel like if they had won the Serie A, that 6 points difference, and there'd be everyone talking about them as talking up Champions League contenders. And I suppose with the way the draw has fallen as well, they could end up, if they get over PSG in a one-legged, they'll be playing Leipzig or Atletico to get to a Champions League final. And I suppose this format could be suiting them, and I almost feel like they're the Ajax or the up and coming team this year. What are your thoughts on them overall?
No, absolutely. Ajax is exactly the comparison I'd make as well. Just for the way they play football too, because they're a breath of fresh air. Gasperini, the manager, has always kind of played this 3-4-3. We're going to score more than you style. You look at the records they got in Serie A: 98 goals in 38 games. No one's done that in 70 years, I think. No one's had 3 players get 15 goals in the league in Serie A for 60 years. They're just great, and everyone sort of says they're the hardest team to play against as well, because they are a bit like the old school Ajax tradition. They're interchangeable in their positions. They go man to man. They try and overload you in wide areas, and then their front three and their attacking players just are always on the move. So when you're playing against them, you don't know where to go really. Papu Gomez is their captain, veteran, sort of Argentine. Everyone's tried to keep him quiet, but he's the type of player that just roams about the pitch, drags his marker wherever he wants, really has that free role. They are going to miss Josip Ilicic, who's been quite important for them. Slovenian attacker, part of that front three, but they just picked all these players that have not really lit the world up in their careers. Gomez, I think, came from Kharkiv, having spent a couple of years with Catania before that. Ilicic was at Fiorentina. Mario Pasalic has been one of those Chelsea players who's been on loan at about 4 or 5 different teams in 4 or 5 different leagues and never
part of that loan WhatsApp group, I'd say.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think he even played for Chelsea. I might be wrong. But with the manager Gasperini, it's, I think, 4th, 7th, 3rd. This is a team that won the cup, I think, in the 60s once. So they've been a breath of fresh air, just the way they've done it as well. Lost their first 3 games, drew against City in the second game, won the next 2, hammered Valencia, and then the story is a bit sad as well, because Bergamo is basically where the coronavirus pandemic really kicked off, and very small place, 120,000 people. Actually, there was a nice line in the Guardian piece about Gomez's wife during the pandemic said, you've seen people in Italy, people in Rome singing from balconies in defiance, and she was like, there's just silence and ambulances here. The streets are abandoned. She took a video because it was so hard hit, and there's that that added dimension to it as well, that Atalanta played all their games in Milan, in the Champions League. 40,000, I think, travelled to that first leg against Valencia in the last 16. Did that contribute? February 19th, I think there's been a lot of studies that suggest it did. The coach it's emerged he has the antibodies or whatever, he's done the test since, had probably coronavirus in the second leg on March 8th. So there's that weight on the players as well, and the fact that they're playing for the fans. I know that's the cliche, but they've had those conflicting emotions to play with. Did that great success contribute to a horrible time for the Lombardy region? But they've certainly delivered on the pitch. It would have been 10 wins in a row in Serie A. Had they beaten Juventus, they were done by 2, handball penalty decisions. It was 2-2. So they would have got pretty close to Juventus had they won that game late in the season. So they're great, and they have a shot against PSG. PSG haven't been great in the 2 cup finals. They really haven't. Saint Etienne with 10 men for 60 minutes in the French Cup final. Gave them a pretty good going over. I saw Mauro Icardi got 2 out of 10 in both L'Equipe and Le Parisien newspapers after the League Cup final on Friday. Everyone's saying without Mbappe, they're not the same team. Is he going to be fit?
And they haven't been playing any games, obviously, with the French league. Obviously, the cup final there last week, but
yeah, they played those 2
games.
cup finals. But we're friendly against Waasland Beveren, Belgian team. That's not going to really do it. And Cavani and Meunier have left as well. Cavani started. People might forget, Mbappe actually got a coronavirus test right before the second leg against Dortmund. He had to sit it out. They still managed to win, but they were able to bring in Cavani to start instead of him.
Again, it's another club that kind of needs a bit of European success, like a Manchester City. There's a lot of these teams need a big win, and you wouldn't put it past PSG, but Atalanta do pose a big threat.
Thomas Tuchel said ahead of the Dortmund game, I remember Dortmund had lost 4-3 against Leverkusen, and he said, like, Dortmund are a team that they could score 6 or 7, and even when they lose, they have enough chances to win. And I think Atalanta are that kind of team. They have absolutely nothing to lose. And again, say if they get the first goal, PSG, a lot of those, I think of Thiago Silva, he's been involved in all those, near things against Chelsea a few years back. Obviously the 4-0 against Barcelona, then lose 6-1 second leg. They just seem to find a way of losing these big games, and the closest they've come is 1995. They got to the semi-final with George Weah in the side, and despite all the money that's come in since 2011, they've never done it. So I just think they can be got at if Mbappe's not there, and Atalanta play with no fear, really. Again, it's a bit like Manchester City. Will all those nightmares and flashbacks come back to some of those players? Even Manchester United last season, the way how did they lose that? I know there was the dodgy handball decision, but they should never have been in that situation. So it's all to play for Atalanta. again, I think they're everyone's favorite team
Yeah.
outside of their own team, and the underdogs. And like you say, semi-final against Leipzig or Atletico.
Final point then, Sean, just in terms of Chelsea and Frank Lampard. So realistically, Chelsea won't be getting through, having lost 3-0 to Bayern. But Timo Werner's come in. Sean, your thoughts on him and maybe Frank Lampard's legacy?
Well, just my opinion of it is that Frank Lampard got praised at the start of the season for bringing about the new Chelsea, bringing in the youth players, the likes of Mason Mount, Tomori. And the thing with what I've seen from Frank in his purchases so far, he's bought Ziyech and Vermeer, a lot of links for Havertz. They need a goalkeeper. And Chelsea could start next season with maybe just Mount and Reece James as the two academy graduates. Mark, maybe explain what Frank, as obviously we all know Vermeer's quality, and you can speak a bit about that, but how do you think Frank got on in his first season, and should he get all the plaudits? He took a team that finished third, he brought them to fourth, lost the cup final, obviously losing Hazard, but Pulisic has really brought in a bit of quality to that team. How did you find Frank's first season?
I think he gets a bit more praise because he's English, and the English media like to big up their own. But I think losing someone like Eden Hazard, I think that squad needed refreshed anyway, and they did have the transfer ban, so he can only do so much. A cup final, top four, he made it. Puffed and puffed, but made it. Clear room for improvement, but it is his first season in the Premier League, so you got to say that's a pretty good return. Same with did a pretty good job at Derby as well. So, Timo Werner's going to be a massive improvement. So is Ziyech, and I think he has made the call on the keeper. He's going to change the keeper. That's going to be probably a big improvement as well. And then whole new defense would be handy too. But I don't think they're going to. He's done a good job. They're not going to beat Bayern, and if you're going to ask me, I think Bayern might win the Champions League. I know you haven't asked me, but I think
you've ruined the last question. we literally just wrote it down. We're going to ask you the winner.
That's great minds think alike, Mark.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of Munich this year, and I just think I think they've got everything you want in a modern day team. I mean, if Liverpool get Thiago next season, I think that is one of the signings, because I think he's one of the best midfield players I've seen in about 10 years. The way he can control a game. At the Munich team I've seen, they've got everything you want. They've got pace up front. They've got the deadly finishing in Lewandowski. They can play really exciting football, and yet they're so strong defensively. I personally think, like I said, I think it's Munich's chance now to go and win it again.
I'll just come in on the draw there, Mark, before you come in.
Yeah, sure.
So Leipzig are playing Atletico Madrid, and Atalanta are playing PSG in one side of the quarterfinals, and the winners of those matches play each other, and then there's a final berth for one of them, as we mentioned. And then the other four ties that are the second leg, so Madrid are playing City, and the winners of that play Lyon and Juve, and then Napoli and Barca, and we'll play the winners of Chelsea and Bayern, and the winners of all that, which is a little bit more confusing on the lot more teams involved. But yeah, you fancy Bayern anyway. Just on my pick, I think Atalanta will get to the final anyway. Whether they beat a Bayern Munich or a Man City in there is another question.
I'd love that. Yeah, the only thing Bayern have against them is, it is a tough route. But they've had, because Germany handled coronavirus so well, because the league was so organised, they got everything wrapped up fairly quickly. Bayern have had a couple of weeks to rest up. The only thing is Benjamin Pavard got injured, the right back, so that's a little issue for them, because
he was having a great season.
He was having a brilliant season, and he allowed Joshua Kimmich to move up to central midfield, which is his favourite position as well. You might remember he scored that crucial goal against Dortmund in the game that really killed off any semblance of a title race. Lewandowski, 51 goals this season. They've got the experience. They've got Neuer in goal. Alphonso Davies has been incredible again. He was put there at left back. Alaba shifted in. Alaba's been very good at centre back. Nothing's really gone wrong for Bayern. They've won every game since the restart, and a lot of them pulling up, Hansi Flick has been incredible. They were 7th in the league at one stage, 7 points off the top. I think after about 14 games, that says a lot about how the opposition didn't really live up to their billing as well. But they've been really, really good, and they were brilliant against Chelsea back in February. I don't think they've lost anything since then, and I think they're just primed to have a real good go at it. And I just think they have everything, and if they should be getting to at least a final, put it that way.
Yeah, I think it's a Munich. For me, it'd be a Munich PSG final. I think Munich, too much quality and too good to break down Thomas Tuchel's team, I'm afraid.
And listen, in one word, Mark, then Europa League winner first.
I think Manchester United. Something tells me they're riding on the crest of a wave in a moment. At the moment,
I think Inter for me.
Good
Lukaku,
shout.
Sanchez, Conte's got them playing well, and I saw Lukaku's 2 goals at the weekend. He's a monster, and he'll come back to haunt Ole Gunnar.
I read Sanchez was getting 390 grand a week at United. Jeez, nice work if he can get it.
I'm going to go for Wolves, so watch them lose to Olympiacos 1-0 at home. Listen, Mark, thanks a million for coming on the podcast, and I'm sure we'll have a catch-up maybe before a final or something.
Absolutely, yeah. Cheers.
Super, Mark. Thanks.
Cheers.